Welcome to Hollywood Latest Reports. When the lights dimmed inside Family Worship Center, no one could have imagined the emotional storm that was about to sweep across the hall. The night was meant to be an ordinary worship service, music, prayer, and reflection, but what unfolded left thousands of people speechless, in tears, and forever changed. At the heart of it all was Martha Borg, the beloved gospel singer whose voice has touched millions around the world. But this night was different. Her voice didn't just sing, it spoke. It told a story of faith, loss, healing, and hope that left the audience frozen in awe. A night of worship turns into a moment of history. The stage was bathed in soft golden light. Behind Martha, a simple backdrop read, "He never failed me yet." The message was clear, but nobody could have guessed how deeply it would connect. As the piano began its gentle intro, the hall went silent. Even the air felt still. Martha stepped forward, holding the microphone close, her eyes glistening under the lights. The first few notes were soft, almost trembling. It was as if her soul was whispering to God. People in the front row later said they could feel her emotion before she even began to sing. Then, she opened her mouth, and the room changed. The voice that broke every heart in the room. From the very first line, Martha's voice carried a rare kind of emotion. Raw, unfiltered, honest. She wasn't just performing a song, she was living it. Her voice rose and fell like a wave of prayer, powerful, fragile, and breathtaking all at once. Every word echoed with years of personal battles, quiet victories, and the kind of faith that only comes from walking through fire. Cameras caught audience members wiping tears from their eyes. Some closed their eyes completely, hands lifted, swaying gently. Others clasped their hands to their chests, as if trying to hold their hearts together. It wasn't just a song, it was a confession of faith. The moment everything stopped. Halfway through the performance, Martha paused. Her voice trembled slightly, and she took a deep breath. You could see the emotion building inside her. Memories, pain, gratitude, everything all at once. The pianist looked up, sensing the weight of the moment. The music softened, almost like a whisper behind her. Martha's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't turn away. She looked out into the crowd and said quietly, "There were days I didn't think I could sing again, but he never failed me. Not once." That was it. The audience broke. People began crying openly. The choir behind her bowed their heads. Even Pastor Jimmy Swaggart, sitting at the front, wiped a tear from his cheek. It wasn't just beautiful, it was holy. The song that healed 1,000 hearts. When she began the final chorus, something changed. Her voice grew stronger, no longer trembling, but soaring. It was like she had found her strength mid-song, and the crowd could feel it. The words echoed through the church like a promise. He never failed me yet. Each note carried faith, resilience, and love. The entire congregation stood on their feet, hands lifted high, singing along. The sound was thunderous, a mix of tears, worship, and awe. For a few minutes, there were no cameras, no stage, no audience. Just one family of believers united by one woman's voice. The reaction that shook social media. Within hours, clips of Martha's performance flooded social media. On TikTok, fans called it the most powerful performance of the year. On YouTube, the video crossed 1 million views overnight. One comment read, "I've heard her sing for years, but this time was different. It felt like heaven opened for a moment." Another wrote, "You can't fake that kind of emotion." Martha wasn't performing. She was praying through her music. Even non-believers commented, admitting they were moved to tears. One said, "I don't go to church, but after hearing her tonight, I felt something I haven't felt in years." A personal battle behind the song. Later, in a quiet backstage interview, Martha revealed that the song was more personal than anyone realized. She shared that in recent months, she had gone through one of the toughest seasons of her life. There were health struggles, moments of doubt, and deep emotional pain. There were days, she said, when she questioned whether she'd ever stand on that stage again. "I was broken," she said softly. "But in that brokenness, I found God again. He reminded me that he never left me, not even when I thought I couldn't go on." Her words resonated deeply with viewers, especially those who were facing their own battles. The choir's silent tears. Behind her, the Family Worship Center choir stood still during her song. Many of them, including longtime members, later admitted that they couldn't hold back their tears. B.J. Pons, one of the singers, said in a post-performance interview, "We sing every week, but that night, something shifted in the atmosphere. Martha's voice didn't just fill the room, it filled our hearts. Even Grace Brumley, known for her composed stage presence, was seen wiping her eyes. The emotional ripple spread through every corner of the church. A divine presence felt by all. Those present described it as a spiritual awakening. Some said they felt an energy they couldn't explain, a warmth, a peace, a sudden stillness. A woman who attended the service later wrote online, "I came in tired, lost, and heavy. I left feeling lighter than I've felt in years. That performance healed something inside me." The testimonies poured in by the hundreds. Emails, messages, and calls came to the Family Worship Center office from people all over the world saying how Martha's performance had changed their lives. The broadcast that went viral. The church's broadcast network replayed the performance several times over the next few days. Each airing drew more viewers. The comments section filled with words like anointed, powerful, life-changing. TV critics even took notice. One Christian media outlet called it one of the most emotionally charged live performances ever witnessed on gospel television. What made it so unique wasn't just Martha's technical skill. It was her vulnerability, her willingness to let the world see her pain and her faith at the same time. The message that touched the world. At the end of her performance, Martha spoke one final line before walking off stage. "No matter what you're facing, don't stop singing. Even when it hurts, sing anyway." The words hung in the air long after she left the stage. They became a mantra for thousands of people struggling with depression, loss, or hopelessness. Fans began using the hashtag #SingAnyway on social media to share their own stories of faith and survival. The phrase quickly went viral, turning into a worldwide movement of hope, from Baton Rouge to the world. Churches in the United States, Africa, and even South Korea played Martha's performance during their services. Pastors referenced her story in sermons. Choirs recreated her version of "He Never Failed Me Yet" as a tribute. Her name trended on Twitter for 2 consecutive days, something unheard of for a gospel singer. News outlets from Los Angeles to London picked up the story, calling it a revival moment in modern Christian music. Reactions from the ministry. Jimmy Swaggart later spoke publicly about the performance, saying, "What we witnessed that night was more than music. It was the Spirit of God moving through his servant." Francis Swaggart added, "I've seen Martha sing for decades, but this time, she poured her soul out. It reminded all of us why we do what we do." Even Donnie Swaggart shared on social media, "Martha reminded the world that true worship isn't about perfection, it's about surrender." Behind the scenes, the aftermath. After the service ended, Martha quietly sat backstage, surrounded by friends and fellow singers. She looked overwhelmed but peaceful. When asked what she felt in that moment, she said, "I felt free. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't performing. I was just thanking him." Her humility struck everyone present. Despite the viral fame, she refused to take credit, giving all glory to God. The legacy of a song. Weeks later, the impact of that night still lingered. Churches continued to replay the video. Fans kept sharing clips. Even secular audiences praised the authenticity of her emotion. A well-known music critic from a major magazine wrote, "In an age where performances are polished and rehearsed, Martha Borg reminded us of something pure, what it means to feel every note." Her performance became a symbol of hope, proof that even in darkness, faith can find its voice. The final word. Months later, Martha was invited to speak at a women's conference. Standing before thousands once again, she was asked what kept her strong through the trials. Her answer was simple, yet profound. "I sing because I survived. I survived because I believed. And I believe because he never failed me." The crowd erupted in applause, but Martha just smiled humbly. In a world full of noise, auto-tune, and fake emotions, Martha Borg's voice stood as a reminder that truth still moves people. Epilogue. A night the world will never forget. That one performance will go down as one of the most powerful moments in modern gospel history. It wasn't just about music. It was about faith reborn, hearts healed, and hope restored. As the lights dimmed that night and the final echoes of her song faded into silence, one thing was certain. No one who witnessed Martha Borg's emotional performance would ever forget it. Because sometimes, one voice is enough to remind the world, he never failed us yet. In the days after Martha Borg's performance, something extraordinary began to happen at the Family Worship Center. Attendance tripled. People who hadn't stepped into a church in years showed up, quietly finding a seat in the back rows, hoping to feel what they had seen online. Ushers reported that entire families came together, holding hands during worship. The atmosphere was different, softer, more reverent. The congregation spoke of peace, healing, and a renewed sense of connection. Pastor Jimmy Swaggart later said in one of his broadcasts, "It was as though that one performance unlocked something in the hearts of people all over the world." Stories of transformation. Emails continued to pour in from around the globe. One woman from Canada wrote that she had been battling depression for over a decade and had almost given up hope. After watching Martha's performance, she said she fell to her knees, weeping uncontrollably, and for the first time in years she prayed again. Another message came from a young man in South Africa who said he had been addicted to alcohol for years. After listening to Martha's song, he decided to change his life. "I realized that if God never failed her, maybe he hasn't failed me either," he wrote. Each story carried the same message: healing, faith, and rebirth through one woman's voice, Martha's silence. While the world kept talking, Martha stayed silent for several days. She avoided interviews, skipped social media, and spent time in quiet reflection. Friends say she spent hours alone at home, journaling, reading scripture, and thanking God for using her voice to reach so many. She wasn't chasing fame, she was protecting her peace. When she finally did speak publicly again, it was during a small church service. She stood at the microphone, smiled humbly, and said, "I didn't plan that moment. It wasn't rehearsed, it was just real. And I think that's why it mattered." Her words reminded people that authenticity still carries power. The revival of gospel music. Martha's performance sparked a renewed interest in traditional gospel music. Young people who had never listened to hymns began searching for them online. Streaming platforms reported a sharp rise in searches for family worship center songs. Radio stations played her performance repeatedly. Some Christian artists even posted